I had recently done the video about the AA people that'll often talk about, there's a difference between the fellowship and the program. The program is not the fellowship and all that other blabber that they put forth in those meetings. And I realized I hadn't actually gone after the literature in quite some time. And it got me to thinking about how many meetings that probably everybody who watches this channel who has been in AA or is leaving AA or is still attending AA because they're forced via the court system to do so could probably identify with what I'm talking about when I used to sit in those meetings. And the second they would ring that bell and say the prayer, and I would feel like this tightening tension all inside of me. It was like this knotted tension that was just building up. Then they would read the topic, and it would be whatever topic it was towards the end, would grate on my nerves to no end, because it was always some topic to do with anger or something like that, or fear, or the usual hundreds of topics we've heard a million times before in there. But then you knew who was going to get called on. You knew what they were going to freaking say. You knew that you were going to have the angry old timers that were yelling and scolding and chastising us for not doing the program right. And then you were going to have to hear the fucking comedians that were going to tell the same stories they had told before. And then you were going to have the emotional ones that would act like they were just about to sob every fucking meeting. I used to think that was performance, so I'm still not convinced it is not. But I was thinking about how grating it was to go through that in terms of listening to those horseshit topics and then have to listen to these people make these bold assertions and these bold claims with no basis in reality whatsoever. And I realized I hadn't gone after any topics in a while here, and I decided I might try to start doing that again, because it was incredibly liberating for me to actually be able to say something on here in the beginning when I first left, when I would say something like, rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our path, and be able to say behind it, and that is a fucking lie. So, it was almost like a catharsis to be able to attack the literature like that. But I actually got a comment from a subscriber that actually summed up the AA program really, really well. And before I actually read it, it reminded me when I was in the drug court program, and I was in the drug court program after I had been in AA for almost 5 years. I got, arrested more than once. It was a very embarrassing thing. It's not something I'm proud of, but I did get court ordered into the drug court program. The judge gave me a temporary license. The judge gave me the ability to drive while I was in the program. They revoked it the second I got out, which was funny. You're going to have to hear a chair squeak because I'm going to lean back here. What was funny was the drug court people actually lied to me at the time I got into it. I'm not excusing the DUIs that I got. Yeah, it's plural. I'm not. I don't like admitting to that, but it is the truth. It did happen. And they had told me if I completed the drug court program and I did all that other stuff, that they would allow me to keep my license, that they would wipe my record clean and all that other kind of thing. I think I was about 4 or 5 months from graduating when I found out they were still going to revoke my license back then. They were still going to leave all that on my record. I still deal with that on my record now. Even though it's been quite a long time, it still pops up because those things cannot be expunged. But at the time that I was in there with the temporary license, I was driving certain people around, to the drug screens. You got to call in 3 times a day to see if you got a screen or not. You got 30 minutes to get there. If you don't get there in 30 minutes, you can go to jail. If you're at work, you got to get an official stamped letterhead from your company, which, how many companies are going to want to do that for you? There was a lot of people that couldn't get it from their company. They would end up going to jail over that, and they would lose their job as a result of it. It's a very unconstitutional fucking thing, but that's not exactly what I wanted to talk about here. But it made me think. There was a friend of mine. He'd become a good friend of mine while he was in the program with me. We went to the meetings together. We went to the drug screenings together. He didn't have a license of a car, and there was one time that he had made his weekly quota on meetings, and he needed to get one of his sheets signed. And as we were driving along to the AA meeting, he looked over at me and he said, "Oh my God, it's fucking Sunday night. You know what that means?" And I said, "That fucking grapevine study, because you couldn't go to just any AA meeting. You had to go to the ones that the drug court people allowed you to go to." And of course, the AA meetings, the people just hated, you being there. You'd walk in with a sheet and hate people who be here to get their sheet signs. When I got here, I did my time in prison. Coming from people who probably never went to prison, but you get the idea. If you've been in drug court or something like that, or had to have your sheet signed, you know what I'm talking about. The people that can't wait to be smug, sanctimonious fucking pricks to you because you're court ordered in, even though they'll tell you in AA nobody gets here by mistake. And God has many ways to send people to the program, but apparently not. One of their many double standards. But anyway, we were pulling up into the parking lot, and he looked over at me and he said, "Oh my God, it's fucking Sunday night." I said, "You mean that fucking grapevine study?" He said, "That man is going to be there." And I said, "And he's going to say, 'I'm grateful to be here tonight.'" And then before I could finish the sentence, he finished it for me. He said, "Because I did many, many years in prison." And then I said, and then he's going to say, he couldn't think of a topic tonight, and then he finished for me. He said, and so he prayed, and I said, and then he dropped the grapevine on the floor, and then the other guy said, and then he picked it up, and he saw a paragraph, and I said, and he knew what the topic was going to be, that God needed him to read for the night. About the sum of it, well, we got in, we sat down on the back row after putting our sheets up there, and he sat down, and he had one of these really smug, sanctimonious, condescending tones of voices, and he says, "Well, I'm really grateful to be here tonight because I spent most of my life in prison and I couldn't think of a topic to read tonight, and I dropped a grapevine on the floor, and as I was picking it up, I read this paragraph, this excerpt, and I knew God wanted me to read this paragraph tonight." And of course, we both started laughing, and he looked at us like he didn't know what the fuck was wrong with us. But anyway, as I was starting this video out, I happened to look at this comment. I saw it when it was first put up. And I said, this sums up the AA program so well that I think I'm going to have to read it. God wants me to read this. Just joking on the God thing. But anyway, it was from the video I had done on AA is wrong about anger and all that other kind of thing. But the subscriber left this for me. He said, "Working the AA steps led to deep anxiety and depression for me. They require you to seek an impossible standard as a measure of success with the AA program." Yeah, pretty much. First, AA says it's progress, not perfection, but then when you get to AA, you have to be perfect. First, you don't have to be perfect, then you do. First, alcoholics are not bad people. Not just because they've done some bad things, it doesn't make them bad people. But then when you get there, you're just the most horrible human being on earth because you're an alcoholic in your fourth and fifth step, and you have to prostrate yourself for the rest of your life before them, begging God for forgiveness, otherwise he'll punish you with drunkenness. So yeah, that is exactly 100% spot on. Furthermore, the sin counting, I like that term, sin counting, with steps 4, and confession, step 5, sin removal prayer, step 6 and 7, apology tour, love that, apology tour 8 and 9, continuation in evangelism 10 and 12, lead you to believe that staying close to God and performing his work well are a path to freedom from anxiety and a cure for depression. And the apology tour, it seemed to me like I would just hear a lot of old timers whenever the topic was 8 and 9. It was just an opportunity for them to tell some more made up stories that I don't believe happened for a minute. I used to see all kinds of people that would say something like, there was somebody I screwed over a long time ago. I stole a lot of money from them, and I never saw them again. And one day, and I was afraid they'd kill me when I bumped into them again. And I prayed to God. I said, "God, if you bump me, if I bump into this guy again, and it be your will that I die, I'll just die gladly. But hope I can make an amendment to him." And the day I did that, I was driving down the street, and I saw the man that I was supposed to make the amendment to walking. And I pulled the car over, and I knew that God wanted me to make, in other words, I don't believe any of that bullshit they claim that they do in these so-called fucking apology tours. I don't believe that. I don't know what happens with some of these new people in their fourth and fifth steps, but the only thing I saw going on with the fourth and fifth steps when I was around AA for a long time was a lot of new people engaging in these steps with these old-time guru assholes sponsoring them that was making fun of them behind their back and looking down on them. I didn't see anybody honestly, but that is exactly as this person said, with these sin confessions. That's what the whole entire 4 steps about. That's why these so-called sponsors get so excited about the idea of forcing new people to do them. They get off on it because they know you're going to be vulnerable. They know you're going to be ashamed of a lot of things in your past. They know that you're going to be insecure about talking to another stranger about him. And they can't wait to exploit that for you. And then they can't wait to tell you that you have to go on one of those sin apology tours that they force you to go on, which I doubt they ever did. You know, it's funny with a lot of these old-timers telling these stories about what it was like when they got there. There's nobody around to counter that. They may have just, you know, you only have their word that it was 20 years ago that they were doing all this stuff, that they was broken and beaten when they got there. You know, there was an article about Carla Brader, who was murdered by an AA member who never stopped drinking, by the way. He would go home and drink, and they said he never had no interest in stopping drinking. But his own family said that he loved the AA program because he knew what to say and he knew how to manipulate people. So I don't think a majority of these old-timers ever practiced any of the shit that they're making you, the sponsee, do, to be 100% honest. I think they force you to do all these things like he's talking about, sin apology tours, confessions, sin listing, breaking you physically and mentally and all that other kind of shit, telling you that you got to keep doing this shit over and over again in these vicious cycles so that you can stay close to God and no longer drink. But to be honest, I think it's very much a rules for us to follow, but not for them. I never saw any old-timer remorseful about anything. You know, it was funny, during my time there was one particular old-timer I knew that used to buy food stamps off of the drug addicts that were located in a really shady alleyway that was close to the AA meeting. He would steal from people, he would exploit people, he would do everything, but whenever it was time to talk about amendments, he was talking about something that happened 20 years ago and how, you know, he saw his mother for the first time in 10 years, and his mother clasped his hands and said, "Oh, son, you made me so proud," you know. And I don't believe that fucking shit happened for a minute. I don't believe any of that happened. I believe that was something these old-timers just tell. But, I mean, as far as him trying to make amends, he never made amends to the sponsees he stole from. He never made amends to the sponsees that he would get their fist steps and then he would call their wives and stuff, the sponsees' wives and families, tell them everything that was on the fist steps just to create trauma and turmoil and all that other kind of thing. He was a complete and utter piece of shit in every way, shape, form, or fashion. And I never saw him doing any apology tours. I just saw him telling all these grand stories that sounded familiar in like a Hallmark movie you would see on television. You know, it doesn't sound remotely close to reality. They expect you to be humble. They expect you to be servile. They expect you to be crushed. But they don't practice any of that. But anyway, the guy goes on, the commenter, I said guy, the commenter said, after trying it, I realized it was as absurd as it originally sounded. In 18 years of sobriety, I can firmly say the most beneficial thing I've done is to stop working the steps. Abstinence and a non-12-step therapist are more important to achieve mental health if you struggle with these things when sober. Anger and fear can be useful tools for building and maintaining motivation to make meaningful changes in life. Really and truly, like I talked about in the last video, they don't want you to be angry unless you're angry at people who relapse, unless you're angry at people who are, you know, actively drinking. You want to see the unbridled cruelty of these AA old-timers. Just show up in a meeting intoxicated. They can't wait to get all filled with rage. They can't wait to bully and mistreat somebody who's rather defenseless because they're intoxicated. That's who you're supposed to save your anger for. But you're not supposed to get angry at anything done to you. You're supposed to be servile and humble and on your knees every morning, on your knees before your sponsors, and doing exactly what he said, all this shame-inducing behavior that they don't practice. And it doesn't do anything for your depression. It doesn't do anything for your anxiety. And yes, they're right. Anger and so-called resentment. I can't even stand the word resentment nowadays. I won't even use it in a sentence. You know, I resent this situation. I mean, now I fucking hate that situation. I'll say that before I'll say resentment. But yeah, those things can be useful tools to overcome, but they don't want you to have useful tools. They want you to be helpless. They want you to be powerless. They want you to be dependent on the cult. Sobriety, they go on to write, can be a good life and is totally worth it. I would have to agree. My life is a whole lot better now without booze. My life is a whole lot better without hangovers. My life is a whole lot better when I don't have to struggle all day, every day in some job, thinking to myself, I can't wait for the fucking 5 o'clock hour to roll around. I don't know if anybody remembers the old song, 5 O'Clock World, or figuratively speaking, every job I had didn't end at 5 o'clock, but I'm driving at it. I can't wait for the end of the day to get here so I can get to the fucking liquor store and drown out this miserable, painful, anxiety-ridden feeling all day long that plagues me. I don't miss having a drink first thing in the morning and then having to suffer for hours at a time until I could get to the next drink. I don't miss waking up and not knowing what I said or what I did the night before. The health tolls that you don't even see as a result of doing this thing are numerous. Your blood sugar goes off the charts. Your blood pressure, the heart problems, the kidney problems, the pancreas problems. I mean, yeah, I feel a lot happier without booze. So I can totally agree. The 12-step, I don't know why I'm stumbling all over my words today. The 12-step mob, they go on, spend countless resources, money, and man-hours to promote their methodology to courts, governments, hospitals, institutions, prisons, rehabs, and then they say it's attraction, not promotion. Yet they're very organized at promoting, evangelizing. People who get sober without a mandate to evangelize are numerous, but heavily disadvantaged without an organized effort. That's another thing about the 12-step hegemony. The 12-step hegemony has you believing that they're the only option out there. The 12-step hegemony doesn't want alternatives to get out there. That's why they're so quick to attack anything. You can browse AA is not effective in a Google search, and the first 20 articles you pull up due to money and search engine optimization is how wonderful the program is of AA, or you'll get a link to that dumb fucking Cochrane study that says it's better than any other program combined. The same Cochrane study that found out the same thing in 2006. The same Cochrane study that always reiterates that. It was kind of funny. There was another article I was looking at. I can't quote the article for this video. I didn't expect this to turn into a 16-minute video where somebody was saying, in a day and age that we're living in now where people are flat out dying on fentanyl and people are flat out dying on bad opioids that are out there on the street, dirty drugs on the street, you really can't afford to have a program that goes around telling everybody, well, you just need to do more if you're not willing to swallow the cult religion. You just need to do more. You need to hit rock bottom. That was going to be my original topic, by the way. But, of course, the AA program would just say, well, see, people who are dying with fentanyl, they're not an alcoholic. Well, the only problem is because of the 12-step hegemony, that's where everybody with a drug problem or a drinking problem is forced to go. What's ironic about it is without the 12-step treatment industry that makes $35 billion a year, which, $35 billion a year might could have helped with the debt ceiling problem that was going on with the government the past couple of weeks. Without them, AA would die. But AA members are quick to blame the very industry that keeps them alive for the problem. I even saw someone comment on one of my, not on my video, but on somebody else's video that was critical of AA earlier. We'll see the reason AA has such a terrible success rate is because of treatment centers. Treatment centers send people there. They blame treatment centers for everything. It was kind of like the Carla Brady murder case. All the AA people tried to say is, well, the criminals are in AA. Those are the ones who are mandated there by law. Mandated, not mandated. But the truth of the matter is I was mandated into AA through drug court. And I can tell you most drug court people have an axe hanging over their head every single day that they roll out of bed. You're facing jail at any given moment for anything you could do. You don't have to fail a drug test to go to jail in drug court. You can actually just have what they call a diluted urine screen, meaning if you had a sinus infection and you drank too much water, they'll say you tried to beat the drug screen and put you in jail. Guarantee you the criminals in AA are the old-timer hegemony that runs it, the hierarchy of all those narcissistic assholes that get high off of crushing the weaker people that come into the rooms. But anyway, did not expect to talk 19 minutes off that one comment, but it was a great comment. I would love to read more subscriber comments on these videos from time to time. There's several people that have a lot of valuable input. So chime in on the comments and keep them coming as always. And I'll see you guys next week, hopefully.